My name is Clyde Bellecourt. I am Chippewa. I'm from the White Earth Indian Reservation, originally here in the state of Minnesota. I'm a member of the Minnesota Chippewa tribe. I got a lot of paper here, but I haven't got any speech, written or anything. I've never written a speech in my life. I did agree I accepted the convocation this morning, and I mentioned over the phone that the topic of my talk here this morning would be Custer died for your sins, and it was kind of a joke when I told them that, and I guess they set it up that way. Prior to the formation of the American Indian movement, we did know that the stats that came up out of this survey and study that Indian people took, we did know that these things existed. We knew prior to the formation of the American Indian movement that Indian people, as far as poverty is concerned, were right at the bottom of the ladder. Most poverty-stricken group or minority group in America today and probably in the world. Most people don't know that some of the conditions that do exist. I talk quite a bit throughout the United States in colleges, universities, churches, and etc. And it's unbelievable some of the questions that are asked and after giving such a talk. Generally it's questions like, do Indian people still live in teepees, and do you still hunt buffalo, and etc. And this comes generally from teachers. So we know that there's not too much known about Indian people, and we, of course, I myself, I'm not an Indian expert. I like to clarify that. I haven't dug up any, Indian burial grounds and dusted the bones of my people. I haven't read any good books on Indian history, but I am 35 years old, and I lived as an Indian all my life. We knew that when we formed the American Indian Movement in July of 1968, the gross annual income of the American Indian nationally, this is based on 750,000 Indian people here in the United States registered under the Bureau of Indian Affairs, the gross annual income of Indian people is set at $1,500 a year. We also found out through surveys and studies that were taken by this National Indian Task Force that Indian people, because of the public health services not being provided for them, either on a reservation setting and today in an urban setting, they have no insurance and etc. Because of the lack of public health services, Indian people live to be 43.5. Of course, white America is 65 plus. We have a suicidal rate 7 times the national average. 82% of Indian housing nationally, and this includes reservation and urban setting, 82% of Indian housing is substandard, considered substandard today. And 72% of that housing doesn't even have, running water. And if it does have running water, it's polluted or contaminated in some way. And I'd like to talk a little bit more about Christianity and what it's done to the Indian. After they welcomed the pilgrims at Plymouth Rock, after they give them medicine, healed them, fed them, showed them how to plant their crops and how to build their houses, the shelter, within 56 years after the pilgrims landed, with a Bible in one hand and a sword in the other, seeking religious freedom, 40 tribes, because they refused to become converted and be baptized and recognize this man that they hung on a cross as their Savior, man they never knew, never saw, that they hung themselves because Indian people would not accept that doctrine and their way of life. 40 tribes were totally erased from the face of the earth. American Indian movement, of course, was formed in July of 1968. I am the executive director of A.I.M. I also serve on the President's National Indian Task Force. This is the only all-Indian task force ever put together by any administration here in America to look deeply into the problems that Indian people are confronted with every day of their life and to try to come up with some type of solution to them. It's often been stated by Indian people, especially those that are quite active, Indian speakers throughout the United States, that we as Indian people would probably be a hell of a lot better off today if Plymouth Rock landed on the Pilgrims instead of Pilgrims landing on Plymouth Rock. Because we know that these people that came here, seeking religious freedom, came to America, to the New World, and discovered Indians, not America, discovered Indians because this white honky was something like 1,800 miles off his course, thought he landed in India, he called us Indians. We know that when they landed here, they were welcomed here. We know that when Christianity came here in full force with the coming of the Pilgrims, it was the Indian people who provided them, contributed everything that they had in the area of food, medicine, shelter, how to plant their crops, etc. 50% of the Pilgrims that landed at Plymouth Rock died that first year. And when they celebrated Thanksgiving, they weren't just thanking Jesus Christ or God for saving them. They were thanking God and Jesus Christ, their Savior, for providing them with the Indian people that came out and saved them. This spirit and this feeling is gone in America today. Today, Thanksgiving is just a day to sit down and eat turkey. It's extra day off from work, a day to celebrate. Everything is forgotten about the Indian and his contributions to this society and this system today. We don't read about this in American history. We don't read about the contributions that Indian people made. Fact is, Indian people contribute every damn thing that you have. Everything. And there's been doctors and scientists have stated over and over, time and time again, that they haven't come up with a medicine yet here in America that Indian people didn't have, use, and practice. Yet there's nothing mentioned about these contributions in school textbooks today. Perhaps this is why we have a 65% dropout rate. There's no identity for the Indian student. Education today is what it always has been. It's a white European concept of conquest and victory. This is all education is to the Indian, and this is the way the Indian sees it. I was out at Bloomington last night. I didn't know that Bloomington still had a Human Rights Commission, but I guess all the suburban communities have one today. And my purpose for being out there, of course, was to discuss and dialogue a play that they had out there about 3 weeks ago that the American Indian movement did disrupt. Several things happened about a month ago. We knocked off digging over here in Welch, Minnesota. They were digging into our graves again, and we stopped the Aquatennial and demanded that they excluded certain floats and marching units from that festival that they have every year because they don't want to sponsor Indian groups and haven't sponsored Indian groups for something like 6 years now in the Aquatennial. At the same time that these things were happening, the American Indian movement found out through a student at Oak Grove Junior High in Bloomington that they were running a play out there, kind of a skit, summer play that was called Another Redskin Bit to Dust. And they couldn't understand why Indian people came out there and stopped that play. Thou shalt not steal. Every damn thing that they have today, they have stolen, one way or the other, from Indian people through treaties. Thou shalt not kill. And there are 56 tribes today that are totally erased from the face of the earth. And after giving us, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife nor his goods, They had people like Shevington of the Methodists. He led the charge at Sand Creek. Slaughtered those 480 men, women, and children. And after giving us all of these commandments and telling us this is what we must do, commandments that Indian people never needed, they set aside only one day to observe them. Only one day. They didn't realize and understand that Indian people's religion was on a 24-hour-a-day business with us. That the earth was our mother. The earth was our mother, and we believe that anything that we took out, we must put back. We didn't have pollution. We didn't rape our mother. We didn't pollute her. We didn't do any of these things. Yet they came along and told us this is what you have to live by. And look at the conditions in this country today. The violations of those commandments that they came here, and that doctrine, Christianity. And then when they couldn't, when Indian people started resisting and started demonstrating and started fighting because they knew that they were going to lose everything that they had, and if it wasn't for Joseph, Crazy Horse, Gall, Sitting Bull, Tecumseh, Hole in the Day, Crashing Thunder, if it wasn't for these great chiefs and great leaders who fought for our survival, we Indian people would not be here today. We would not be here today. They established the Bureau of Indian Affairs under the War Department to regulate trade between the Indians and the settlers. Today, we're under land management in the Interior Department. They're still only concerned about that less than 1/2 or 1% of the land that Indian people still own today. They're still concerned about that land because it isn't polluted. And they're after it. They're after it. We're fighting every day to try to get it back. The demonstration that took place in Wisconsin is mentioned in the morning paper. There's a bill being introduced to turn those 16,000 acres back to the Chippewa Indians in Wisconsin. Northern states' power robbed the Indians of those 16,000 acres. more than 50 years ago. Legal theft. Over 3,000 voting members of that tribe in the state of Wisconsin, only 108 agreed to the lease with Northern States Power. And when they flooded, they were only supposed to flood 224 acres as a backup to the power plants that NSB and the Wisconsin Light Company were putting in there. But when they got through, they had flooded over 16,000 acres of land. They agreed to build new homes for the Indians as part of the lease. There are still no new homes in this Wisconsin Chippewa tribe. They agreed to remove the burial ground. Today, all those graves where all the great leadership of the Wisconsin Chippewa tribe are underwater. They agreed that all of the timber that was cut down and cleared, the money would be turned over to the tribe. Not one penny of that money did NSP turn over to the tribe. In 1935, one of the greatest religious holy men that ever lived died. This man couldn't speak a word of English, never been to school. He died on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, full-blooded Okalala Sioux. The Sioux people and the Chippewa and the Hopi, the prophecies are all the same. The religion was universal, even though they had different dialects, different ways. They worshiped one great spirit chief. The Sioux people knew in their particular prophecy, long before the white man got here, that they were coming. I attend Uweepi ceremonies and sweat lodges on the Rosebud Indian Reservation today because the religion here in this state is quite dead. It's coming back throughout the country, but here in Minnesota it is dead. We're trying to get it going again. We know Indian people need that. On the Rosebud Reservation, I attend Uweepi ceremonies. It's the only religion in the world that I know of today where they recognize the four colors of the earth. That whenever they set up their altar, there's a white flag there, a red flag, a yellow flag, and a black flag. And when they take that peace pipe and they offer it to the four directions, they're also honoring the four races of man, the four colors. This man that died in 1935 knew, and the Sioux people knew, long before Columbus ever landed here, that they were coming. Talked about two comings of the white man. The first, they would stay for just a very short period and leave. The Vikings. Then they said it would be a second coming. And their skin would be so pale, so white. The Indian people said, white as death. In the prophecy, white as death. And they said that they would never leave. And the talk that the Indian would save them, would come out and minister to them. And when they were dying at Plymouth Rock, Indian people did come out and save them. Furnished them everything that they had. Then they said that the Indian would suffer for generations, for them. They talked about conditions that would exist in this day and this time. The prophecy is up to date today. They said that the deer and the antelope would run and hide. You know what's happened here in the state of Minnesota. They're not even going to allow deer hunting this season. The buffalo would disappear before our very eyes. They are gone. They talked about the two-legged, the animals leaving and hiding. Then they talked about the eagle, the greatest religious symbol universally of all Indian people. They talked about the eagle being attacked by this society. And you know what has happened in Wyoming and Utah, and what will happen again in Alaska when they set off that atomic blast up there to the eagles. But they said conditions would be so bad. They talked about a black cloud would cover Mother Earth. There'd be rioting and looting and burning. that would come to pass. They knew that the white people would set up churches. They'd box Christ in churches, God, and that there'd be splits between the denominations. There'd be splits from the higher schools of learning. There'd be dropouts. They didn't call them hippies and yippies. But they did talk about the dissension in this country and the prophecy. And then they said that even the Creator, the giver of life of all things, the sun, would someday be unable to see the fish in the water. Pollution, they knew about it. It was prophesied. And when all of these things came about in this generation, it was stated that little fires would burn again. That when conditions were so poor and so bad, almost the same conditions that white America faced at Plymouth Rock, they said that little fires would burn again. That Indian people would stand up. They didn't say that Indian people would inherit the earth, because we never owned it. We shared everything that we had. It was the government that came in with their treaties and divided the land and the people. They made 389 of them.
A group of American Indians has taken over the town of Wounded Knee in South Dakota, and they have been holding it for nearly a whole day.
Most of the Indians were members of A.I.M, the American Indian Movement.
This afternoon, the FBI said the Indians are in charge of the town.
Yeah. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Yeah. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Say it again, y'all. Look out. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Listen to me. I despise. 'Cause it means destruction of innocent lives. War means tears to thousands of mothers die when their sons go out to fight and lose their lives. I said war. Good God, y'all. What is it good for? Absolutely. Get said again. War. Lord. What is it good for? Absolutely. Nothing. Listen to me. War. It ain't nothing but a heartbreak. War. Friend only to the undertaker. Oh, war is an enemy to all men. The thought of war blows my mind. War has caused unrest within the younger generation. Induction, then destruction. Who wants to die? Oh, war. Good God, y'all. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Said. War. Yeah. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Listen to me. War. It ain't nothing but a heartbreaker. War. I got one friend, that's the undertaker. Oh, war has shattered many young man's dreams, made him disabled, bitter and mean. Life is much too short and precious to spend fighting wars each day. War can't give life, it can only take it away. Oh, war! Good God, y'all. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Say it again. War. Lord. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Listen to me. War. It ain't nothing but a heartbreaker. War. Friend only to the undertaker. Oh,
Indian legislation's on the desk of a do-right congressman. Now, he don't know much about the issue, so he picks up the phone and he asks advice of the senator out in Indian country, a darling of the energy companies who are ripping off what's left of the reservations. I learned a safety rule. I don't know who to thank. Don't stand between the reservation and the corporate bank. They'll send in federal tanks. It isn't nice, but it's reality. Bury my heart in wounded knee, deep in the earth. Cover me with pretty lies. Bury my heart in wounded knee. They got these energy companies who want the land, and they've got churches by the dozens want to guide our hand.
At this time, I'd like to give the mic to one of the A members, Mr. Bellecourt.
I just want to make a few comments. I'm not going to use up a lot of time. I've been traveling throughout the United States since leaving Wounded Knee, trying to establish a national defense fund and an organization for a support committee. And everywhere I went, throughout the United States, even down into redneck country in Texas, I found out that we had the majority of the support of the American people. A lot of the remarks that were made here were false by Mr. Patterson. I've dealt with Mr. Patterson before. The American Indian Movement has dealt with these agencies sitting right here at this table before. We presented a 20-point solution paper to them in November, the 1st through the 7th. They told us that within 60 days they would give us an answer to those 20 points. There are a lot of people in this gathering here that are familiar with them. Among them, Mr. Burnett, who is a co-chairman of the Trail of Broken Treaties. And after the 60 days were up, it only took the government 15 minutes to answer those 20 points. And they turned each and every one of them down, including a treaty-making commission. And I assure you that a lot of the things that were said here today will also be turned down. I would like to see, before that meeting takes place a week from now, at least Aberrats and Jackson and all these people that have been sending others in here to investigate from their staff, name, commission hearings to be held here on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation with an open forum, a public hearing, to get to the bottom of all of this. This is something he can do immediately to stop the tyranny that is going on here on Pine Ridge. We also know that throughout the polls that were taken, the Harris polls, for instance, that we have the support of the people. In fact, the poll that was taken on Wounded Knee stated that we had 51% support of the American public. And the federal government only had at that time 21%. 2 weeks later, they took another poll where they asked if they thought, the American public, if they thought Richard Nixon was involved in the Watergate issue. 63% of the public said they thought he was involved. So the American Indian Movement and the people that were in Wounded Knee had more support than the President of the United States. That's where we're at, and we got to realize that. I think that nothing really is going to be done until Indian people continue to hold meetings like this, and they demand the right. Halstern made the remarks when he, after the Wounded Knee occupation ended, that the back of the American Indian Movement was broken at Wounded Knee. Now, you all know differently. We know that a lot of things happen out of Wounded Knee. A lot of other tribes, a lot of other Indian organizations across this country benefit from the stand that was taken at Wounded Knee. In my state, in the state of Minnesota, just 2 weeks ago, the Minnesota Chippewa tribe, in support of what is happening at Wounded Knee, revoked all of the leases of the resorts on the lakes of the 6 reservations in that state, which immediately affected 600 resorters. And when they renegotiate those leases, that money is going to go directly to the tribe and not to the Bureau of Indian Affairs anymore. Because they did recognize a treaty on December 10th of 1972 in the state of Minnesota. The federal government said that the state of Minnesota was in violation of the treaty, and that the Indian people had the right to hunt, fish, gather wild rice, and trap free of state law. So the federal government has set the precedent for honoring treaties, and they can honor the Treaty of 1868. But what's more important than that is what is taking place right now. We know that the agreement that was signed on April 5th, and I was a party to that agreement. I was one of the negotiators throughout that agreement and the signing of it. And as we were signing that agreement, those people that were in Wounded Knee know that this was happening. The very time that we were signing that agreement, marshals were shooting at 2 of our men driving a little Japanese foreign car down the highway. And they had a fire going at Wounded Knee. And I've had witnesses come up to me since the second signing of the agreement about the violations. And I've had people talk about petitions that they have signed, stating that the American Indian Movement was not responsible for the looting and the clothing and the food and other things that were thrown around Indian people's homes, and they let the photographers in. The Bureau of Indian Affairs police were responsible for that. We also know that when Indian people were herded up onto that hill, up on the hill the day that they surrendered, they were surrounded like animals. For 7.5 solid hours, they weren't allowed water, go to the toilet, or they didn't feed them. And there was babies among that group. This is the federal government. This is a decayed, corrupt federal government that we're dealing with at the present time. And if you'll go back a little bit further in the history of the Wounded Knee takeover, the people that we were dealing with then were Ehrlichman and Kleindienst, Garment, and people like that. Where are they today? I was surprised that they could come up with 5 people out of the administration today to meet here that weren't under indictment or suspected in one way or the other. And I'm sure, and I want to reassure the Oklahoma Sioux people, and all Sioux people, and all other tribes here in the United States, that the American Indian movement is not going to stand by. And we make our same statements that we made prior to coming into the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, where they had restraining orders against the whole movement, that we are not going to stand by and watch our people be brutalized anymore. Indian women's daughters being raped, Indian homes being firebombed on this reservation or any other reservation in the United States. And $25,000 bonds and 11 indictments and possibilities of over 100 years in prison is not going to stop the American Indian movement from protecting Indian people's rights in this country. And I assure you that we are on standby now. There's a camp being set up right in Marvin Franklin's backyard in Oklahoma at the present time. And we're going to be dealing with people like Marvin Franklin right there in Oklahoma. The American Indian movement is here to stay, and I'm sure it's going to be around a lot longer than these gentlemen sitting right at this table here today. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, we Indian people have been through hell and back, but we have always taken it on the chin, silently.
Several murder cases where an Indian was the victim, namely the Raymond Yellow Thunder, Little Brave, Wesley Badheart Bull, Bordeaux, and Brave murder cases where the federal government has allowed the states involved to try said cases when said murders took place within the confines of treaty country. Therefore be it resolved by the Sioux Treaty Council in session this 18th day of May, 1973, that the Council urges the United States of America to honor its treaty commitments and prosecute those who commit wrongs against Indian people, and further resolve that hereafter the duty of fulfilling such legal obligations be assigned to a Presidential Treaty Commission who will oversee the fulfillment of such obligations.
I think all my Sioux people do understand that. So at this time we'll present the resolution that Mr. Bellecourt just read before I made a speech. Okay, thank you.
Criminal jurisdiction now he wanna present you watch han watch hajata poji tu akari ki hohen okichi amna ho you stonki hechitu the resolution so oyati chalo
let's have a resolution way up below washiti and Lakota.
And as I stand here today, every one of those treaties are being violated. Yet they are honoring a treaty to fight a war in Vietnam. And we're saying they should get the hell out of Vietnam and come home and start honoring some of these treaties here. But they said when these conditions were that way, same as they were on Plymouth Rock, Indian people would stand up again. Little fires would burn. And we'd offer the same direction. We'd help save Mother Earth. And we sincerely believe today, since our formation in July of 1968, we are holding a national convention this month here in Minneapolis. We have 17 chapters today, considered one of the fastest growing movements in the country today. 17 chapters are meeting here to put together a national board, a national program, philosophy, to try to do something about the problems that man faces today. Problems that have been created for the Indian, problems that he never had. And we sincerely feel today, even though we are considered a very militant organization, even though Indian people are still considered a bunch of drunks, lazy, dumb, we sincerely believe today that the American Indian movement is no different than the Ghost Dance Society or the Sundance, the religious movements that formed in the late 1800s for survival. We sincerely believe today that the American Indian movement is those little fires that would burn again. I have a suggested reading list here. The book that I mentioned, the man I was talking about, of course, is Black Elk. This book was published in 1935 by John Neihardt, who spent 2 years with Black Elk on Pine Ridge Indian Reservation prior to his death. Black Elk, of course, was one of the first medicine men or religious holy men of the Indian people that ever put his story down on paper. And the reason why he did it is he felt that not only his own Indian people had to know these things, but someday maybe white people would stand up and listen also. This book has recently is fast becoming a bestseller in colleges and universities throughout the country today. We have a suggested reading list. One of the best books out that I feel today is the book that's on the top of the bestseller list right here in Minneapolis, Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee. It is written by a white man, but it's written by a white man that really understands Indian culture and religion and tradition. And it's an authentic account of the winning of the West from the Indian point of view. What Indian people witnessed is taken out a lot of the text and information there is taken out of congressional records. So it's telling the truth. And we don't necessarily talk about Indian study programs. You know, I don't believe that an Indian should have to go to college to learn to be an Indian. You know, I think this is something we need from Head Start all the way on. What we are saying is, you know, that as far as this busing issue is concerned, this isn't new to the Indian either. They've been busing Indian people from Alaska to Chillicothe, Oklahoma. They've been busing Indians from here to Haskell, Kansas, Carlisle, and 226 all Indian schools, boarding schools in the country today. But yet every one of these schools are governed and controlled by an all-white school board. There's only 2 Indian schools in the country that are run by Indian people and has an Indian curriculum, and that's Rough Rock Demonstration School and the Pine Point School on the White Earth Indian Reservation in this state. The American Indian movement hopes to start the same thing. Thank you.
To our elders who teach us of our creation and our past, so we may preserve Mother Earth for ancestors yet to come, we are the land.
This is dedicated to our relatives before us, thousands of years ago, and to the 150 million who were exterminated across the Western Hemisphere in the first 400 years' time, starting in 1492.
To those who have kept their homelands, and to the nations extinct due to mass slaughter, slavery, deportation, and disease unknown to them, and to the ones who are subjected to the same treatment today. To the ones who survived the relocations and the ones who died along the way. To those who carried on traditions and lived strong among their people. To those who left their communities by force or by choice and for generations no longer know who they are.
To those who search and never find. To those that turn away the so-called non-accepted. To those that bring us together. And to those living outside keeping touch, the voice for many.
To those that make it back to live and fight the struggles of their people. To those that give up and those who do not care. To those who abuse themselves and others and those who revive again. To those who are physically, mentally, or spiritually incapable by accident or by birth. To those who seek strength in our spirituality and ways of life and those who exploit it, even our own. To those who fall for the lies and join the dividing lines that keep us fighting amongst each other.
To the outsiders who step in, good or bad, and those of us who don't know better. To the leaders and prisoners of war, politics, crime, race, and religion, innocent or guilty.
To the young, the old, the living, and the dead. To our brothers and sisters and all living things across Mother Earth. And her beauty we've destroyed and denied the honor that the Creator has given each individual.
The truth that lies in our hearts, all my relations.
Miigwech. I want to thank each and every one of you for being here today. It's been a long struggle, but you know we never give up in the American Indian movement. And that is why I thank each and every one of you, because each and every one of you played a major role in dealing with racism, ignorance, that still guides us in America.
This is 1992. The Indian people are still here, and racism must go.
We have challenged over 2,500 teams, high school, colleges, professional teams. We got rid of them. Got rid of all the high schools right here in the state of Minnesota. And that started our journey. People laughed at us and said that wasn't important. There was more important issues. So if we can't do it with racism, we'll never be able to do anything.
That's where the word redskin comes from. That's the word from the scalping policy.
The team announced in a statement Monday morning, we will be retiring the Redskins name and logo.
It was very exciting when I couldn't believe it. You know, I knew it was going to happen, period. You know, the first two major sponsors started out with $690 billion. 200, you know, that much money. When that money comes into play, things start happening. Because that's the only thing that matters. It's the only thing that move things. And it's unfortunate it's that way, but that's the way it is. And now we're asking them to put that money into the communities.
That's right.
Into our young people, our youth. Some of them who are killing one another. We have to put a stop to that. And we need money to do that. There's no kidding about that. We need help in our community.
I was listening to the voices of life, chanting in unison. Carry on the struggle. The generations surge together in resistance to meet the reality of power. Mother Earth embraces her children in natural beauty to last beyond oppressors' brutality. As the butterfly floats into life, we are the spirit of natural life, which is forever. The power of understanding, real connections to spirit, is meaning our resistance, our struggle, is not sacrifice lost. It is natural energy, properly used. One time, I was visiting with my relatives. The clouds, the mountains, the sky, the trees. My relatives touched my spirit, nudged it lovingly. Listen to us, impatient one. We are forever. You must remember the gentleness of time. You are struggling to be who you are. You say you want to learn the old ways. Struggling to learn when all you must do is remember. Remember the people. Remember sky and earth. Remember the people have always struggled to live in harmony, in peace.
The struggle continues, and we're going to continue this battle. We're not going to give up. Surrender is not in my vocabulary.
Struggle against selfishness and weakness so the people may live as nations. The old ways are hard. The people have always had to work together. Remember, impatient one. Remember and live. Do not be afraid of truth. Respect, discipline, share your life so the people may live. Honor sky and earth. Honor yourself. Honor your relations. Remember, impatient one, the gentleness of time. Grandmother Moon, you are more than light in the night. You are more than the moon. You are spirit connection. Your energy is our life. You are memories to generations past. You are the creator of sensations that will always last. You are the knowledge, the teacher, the influence to keep the people sane. You are a healer for spirit pain. Grandmother Moon, we love you, and we are angry at the invaders who trash you and violate our universe with their mechanical uncleanliness. We pray for you, for us, and for the invader who just can't comprehend respect, love, or the balance of life. We do not join the invading madness. From the way they act, it speaks of spirit sadness. Machine money progress is the cause of our common abuse. We see you, grandmother. We feel you. We love you. We know through your reality we will endure. We are one. We pray for you. We pray to you.